So what's the best way to breathe while you're training, or more specifically, while you're resistance training or exercising? Now, I get this question a ton because the videos I post of me training shows that I'm doing a very bizarre breathing technique, which is kind of fast-paced, rapid breaths. I'm going to give you an explanation of why I use that technique and a little bit of physiology behind it. So first off, let's think about when you go for, a jog, a sprint, or even a fast-paced walk, what happens to your breathing rate? Naturally goes up, doesn't it? It goes up because when you are placing a higher demand on working muscle tissue, the cardiovascular system has to work harder in order to supply that muscle tissue with what it needs to perform the work that you're asking it to do. It's going to supply it with blood, nutrients, and of course, oxygen. It's also going to dispose of some of the waste products. So when we're jogging, we naturally pick up our breathing rate in order to supply, the working tissue with what it needs. But for some reason, and I have a theory about this, when people are weight training, they're holding their breath. Now, my theory is most people get their habits with weight training just based off of what they see in the gym. Now, remember, 99% of what you see other people doing in the gym is either flat out wrong, and in many cases, absolutely backwards. And in this case, it's absolutely backwards. Most of the people are holding their breath in order to simply get the weight up, rather than continuously breathing and supplying aerobic respiration with the oxygen it needs to produce the ATP to fuel the muscle contraction. Now, I have a theory of why people do this, and that is because they do not understand the actual purpose of exercise. The purpose of exercise is to reduce fatigue in a targeted muscle group, a deep, meaningful level of fatigue, in order to stimulate an adaptive response. The goal is not to get the weight up. So a lot of people in the gym unknowingly or mistakenly think that the goal is to simply get the weight up. So what they're doing is they're holding their breath because it makes it easier to do that by creating intra-abdominal pressure. You do not want to do this. You do not want to perform a Valsalva maneuver because you are restricting the oxygen intake and restricting your muscles from getting what it needs to perform the work you're doing or the work you're asking it to do. The proper way to breathe is how I display in my videos. You want to increase your rate of breathing in order to increase the oxygen coming in and the waste products coming out to supply or supply the muscle with what it needs to perform the work. So the first couple of repetitions, just take nice, easy breaths. Remember, you want to keep your whole body relaxed other than the targeted muscle group that you're trying to work. That includes your face and your jaw. You just want it, the first couple repetitions, you're not going to have a very high rate of breathing because there's not that high of a demand on the muscle tissue. So the first few repetitions, it's going to be, but you'll notice once you start to get into the more demanding repetitions in the higher order motor units, which require more effort, your heart rate's going to go up a little bit. When your heart rate starts to go up, that's when you want to increase the rate at which you breathe, because that means your cardiovascular system is working harder. So once you start to get to the more difficult repetitions that require more effort, you want to breathe more rapidly, more along the lines of just like if you were jogging really, really hard. Now, if you breathe this way, not only is it going to give you a more effective exercise stimulus, it is also going to stimulate your cardiovascular system more effectively and produce adaptations in that over time.